Hi, everyone. My name is Elisaveta. I cover the full stack sales role here at LeadDelta. This is our third webinar here with LeadDelta, and today we have a very special guest, Donald Kelly. And I will give him a minute to introduce himself. Donald, I know I asked you, I know what is a LinkedIn top voice in sales, but do you wish to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so LinkedIn top voice in sales is something that I was for years. I always saw people who were sharing content on LinkedIn, and they and I would see this thing that says top voice in sales, like or top voice in business or top voice in marketing. And forever I was curious about that. And come to find out those were individuals that were LinkedIn recognized for the content that they're sharing, and LinkedIn give them this recognition as a top voice so people can follow and learn from them and their content. So I was like, well, maybe it'll happen in the future, maybe it'll happen. So it was crazy that was last year I got this message about at the end of the year saying, hey, we're gonna have you be a top voice in sales. And I was like, what? So I was really pumped for that. So if all the sales folks are out there, there's a lot of people who share great content, and I feel great, lucky to be amongst them. And I'm flattered and excited to be considered as somebody that my content is recognized to be able to help sales professionals. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome. And what else should people know about you that you have not stated before?
So I live in South Florida. I started a podcast in 2012. Big shout out to Nathan, one of our early listeners. He's on this webinar.
Nice.
I started this podcast as a means of, I started discovering what was working for me as a sales professional. I was like, there's probably other salespeople who need some of these things. So I started to share those insights with them as well on a podcast and interview other sales leaders and experts. And it just started to get its own footing and feet of its own, and started to progress. And naturally, we started to get clients who wanted me to coach them, and I helped them individually. And then I had teams who had me come and do consulting and speak at their events and so forth. And it just came to a point in 2012 that in 2015, the podcast gained its own sponsors, and it made sense for me to leave my full-time software sales job. It didn't fully replace my income, but it did eventually, and started doing this. I saw there was an opportunity and continued on the path. And now we train and coach sales teams across the globe, helping them use LinkedIn, helping them with top of funnel, teaching their salespeople how to sell, group coaching. We have cohort programs that individual salespeople are able to come into, and it's a fun thing. So we love it, and we love teaching about sales and sharing what's working.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds good. And when you mentioned 2015, I cannot help but ask this question. How long did it take you to get starting to build an audience, start publishing content on LinkedIn, and actually making money out of it?
Yeah, so the podcast, initially I didn't do much on LinkedIn. I was apprehensive, like most of you, when it comes to LinkedIn. Most people do not share. Only 3% of LinkedIn users share content, about 3%. And the reason is because they feel it's a professional network, and I don't know what I'm going to say, and I don't want to sound bad, or say something that doesn't sound good. And a lot of that is just head trash. It's just imposter syndrome. So fast forward, the podcast itself started gaining audience relatively quickly. I was probably one of the 7 podcasters out there in the sales arena early on when I launched in 2013, 2012. And the landscape was open. But my LinkedIn audience, probably say, really started to grow. Maybe I started paying attention to it probably around that 2015. By 2018, started to see a little bit more progression. 2019 and 2020 was a really good time where we started to see a lot more progress.
Okay, well, that's probably 7 years.
Yeah.
Because I think that people, when they think about starting to build an audience on LinkedIn and start posting, they're like, yeah, the success will be overnight, but the overnight is actually at least 2 and more years.
Yeah, I'm a 7-year overnight success story. So there you go.
Nice. All right. I mean, the topics that we will cover today is building a network on LinkedIn. We'll touch upon that briefly because we want this to be very actionable for our audience. Presence and content, that is something that people really like. And I think they're always asking questions about how to start, what to do, what to write about, and not sound cringe or irrelevant. And of course, the topic that actually you brought on when we first talked, and that is how do you leverage triggers to get meetings, start conversations, build networks on LinkedIn. So first of all, how did you start building your network on LinkedIn?
So here's a piece with that. The first thing that I did, I focused on my industry, and I started off in the medical field prior. Well, let's go back. When I first started, I was in the medical field, and I just started sending connection requests to everyone. And then I did everything that was wrong when it came to LinkedIn. I would send out connection requests, I would join groups, and then I would try to spam people. Didn't know I was spamming them, but send them messages about, hey, can you let me tell you about our services, let me tell you about my company, or whatnot. Let's set up a time for a 15-minute call. And I'm like, people didn't know who I was, and what kind of content I could bring to them, what kind of value. And here I am going to them and telling them, let's set up a time, 15 minutes to sit down. In my mind, I didn't associate that, and I know this sounds crazy, but I didn't associate that those were people with families, with work, with projects they're working on. I just saw them as potential for me and my self-interest. And I think that's what happens sometimes with social. We see a picture and we don't associate that there's and I know it sounds crazy, but we don't associate that there's a soul or an identity, that there's a human being behind that. And that makes a big problem. So I started off doing those things wrong from the get-go. But what started to work, how I started to build an audience, was I reached out to people in my niche. And when I left the medical field, I still had my medical field contacts, but then I got into the software game, started building my community around that. And strategy was, connect with my customers, connect with potential customers as well, maybe some of the industry leaders or organizations. And that's where I think some people miss the ball sometimes when it comes to LinkedIn, is that you need to be a big fish in a small pond. They look at LinkedIn and it says, I want to have like 100,000 followers, or I have 100,000 contacts. Like, you don't need that many.
Yeah.
What you need to focus on is a focused niche of people. If you are known amongst 500 people as the expert when it comes to marketing, amazing. That's 500 human beings. Imagine that in a room. That's fantastic. 1,000 or 2,000. So the key here is that you really need to niche down and focus. And oftentimes people stay within their niche. Since I got into software, that's where most of my stuff stayed. And I, as my career matured, I wasn't going to start over in a whole nother career field. I stayed in an industry that I gained traction and momentum with. And that's important that you need to understand. So hopefully that kind of give a little answer there.
Yeah, of course. And I remember early days in my first SDR role, we were targeting security people, which are, I think, pretty hard to do outreach. And I remember just spamming those people with the sequence tool that we had. And those people are like, yes, who are you? I mean, okay, you're messaging me, but who are you? What do you want from me? So I can definitely relate to that one. And once I started out, I work with salespeople, of course, and I sell my software to them. And that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years. And when I started really building a niche audience of people who actually use my tool, where I'm not like, where I'm not making any presumptions, are they or are they not? And I know exactly that they are, that's when things really started to change.
Yes. Yes. And
And
so with you, you definitely should connect with me on LinkedIn. So if you're watching this webinar, it'd be great to connect with you all.
For sure. And I know when I sent a request to you, you asked me, how do we know each other? And why are you connecting with me? So that's my second question. What strategies do you use to reach out to people?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that I do. The first part, what you shared, is, and some of you, I'm giving you the playbook right now, what's going to happen, because I don't know you yet. However, if somebody is connecting with me, there's a high possibility that they're interested not only maybe in my content, but maybe what I teach and what I share. So I always send a message like, hey, thank so much for the connection. Out of curiosity, or it'll be they send me a connection request. It'll be an honor to connect with you. Out of curiosity, what prompted the outreach? And they might say, oh, I saw some of your stuff, or I saw you on a webinar with LeadDelta, or I mean, one of my friends mentioned your podcast, or I was looking at some there you go, some of the requests are coming in now. I looked at some of your website and was interested in this, and those lead to appointments. But usually what happens is most of us just accept the connection request. The goal of those is to start conversations. You need to make sure, remember, from what I talked from the very beginning, there are human beings behind that picture, behind that profile. And if you can start dialoguing and connecting with that human, magic starts to happen. And then as far as doing my outreach, what I recommend to sales professionals, 5 to 10 people per day. You're not going to trigger anything with LinkedIn, but 5 to 10 invites per day to someone that's in your network. And if you were to do this as an exercise right now, if you were to go to, search or go to the filter on your own LinkedIn profile, and then you start put in the title of your ideal customer. So maybe it's marketing director, or maybe it's finance managers, or maybe it's HR directors. Now, tell me what percentage of, say you have 1,000 followers or connections on LinkedIn, what percentage of those are your ideal customers? And usually what I find is that number is really dismal for many people in their industry. So let's say they have 1,000 connections and they have like 2% of their ideal customers in their connection pool. That's dismal. Even if you have 5 or 10. My philosophy is that you want to get to 50%. And there's no certain rhyme or reason on that, but I just picked that number because I feel if I'm serving that community, maybe I should, most of those people should be people that I can potentially serve by the content, by the education. So I have 1,000, let's say I have 1,000 contacts. Let's try to make sure at least half of them have sales in their titles, or sales leaders, or sales professionals, or sales rep, or sales enablement, because those are the people that would benefit from my content, who would make decisions or be influenced or influencers for the solution that we have. So if you send 5 to 10 connection requests per day, you start to build this up over the course of a month. Say you do 5 a day, 25 over the course of a week. Over the course of a month, that's 200. And let's say 100 of those individuals, no, just back up. So 25 times 4, my bad. Let's say 100. And then from those 100 individuals that you have connection with now, say 50 of them actually accept the connection request. So you have 50 people per month that you're connected to. You see how the magic can start happening there, that your ideal customer. So now your pipeline or your connection pool becomes rich with people who can benefit from your content and also potentially benefit from your service.
Yeah, exactly. This is the exact tactic that I use. So I follow a lot of LinkedIn influencers, yourself as well, and I know that for when you share content and other people who are very influential in the LinkedIn world, I know people who engage with them either by commenting or liking those posts. Those are my ideal customers. So what I do, if I find a post that went viral, even if it didn't, I'll just go through that list and I'll just click connect, 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 connect. And later on, like, okay, I have a tool that pretty easily I can sort out who is relevant to me or who is not. And I can easily start a conversation. Just say, hey, I know this is a pretty washed up line, but I saw you engaging with this kind of post or something like that. Just starting a conversation. Although I have been guilty of connecting and pitching, I no longer do that. Have you ever done that?
Of course, yeah. That was my big problem at the beginning, was like I felt that because it's kind of like in my head, I'm like, well, they see that I'm a salesperson, or they accepted my connection request. Therefore, yes, they want to buy from me. And that's not the idea behind it. It's kind of like, in middle school or high school, somebody smiles at you, you're like, oh my goodness, I think they have a crush on me. No, they're just smiling. They're a human being. They're just walking by and saying hi. So now you don't, and when the LinkedIn comes to LinkedIn, the same idea. We start to look at it and we start to think, well, because of this, then therefore they're interested in my services. They could be. Start a conversation though, but 9 times out of 10, if you connect with them, if you send them a connection request and they accepted connection request, they're just saying, hey, I'm open to adding you to my network. Maybe they want to grow their network as well.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, they want to buy, but if they purposely reached out to you to have a connection request to connect to you, find out of curiosity what prompted the outreach. I love to do that.
Yeah, for sure. And once you get the conversation started, and for example, you see that this is your perfect customer, how do you transition from like a chit chat to actually asking for a meeting?
Yeah, so the big component that I do, and we can talk about this with some of the other strategies that we have
Yeah.
here, as
Hmm.
like with the notifications. But one of
Yeah.
the easiest that I do is I believe strongly in deposit it into the bank. So remember what we talked about already from the very beginning, share content. We have a
Hmm.
strategy that we use: connect, share, engage, connect, share, engage, connect, share, engage, connect with your ideal customers every single day, share relevant content at least once a week, engage with those people that are engaged on engage on your content. But what starts to happen is that your pool of people, so now I say I have 10, I'm adding 50 people to my pool per month of my ideal customers. They're starting to see my content, they're starting to connect with me. What I do after and I start a conversation. So let's go back to that question, like, how do you start a conversation? Don't focus about you, focus about them. So let's say I send a connection request to someone, they accepted that connection request. I see that they're in maybe they're in Denver. So I might ask, out of curiosity, I went to Denver recently, which I did, and I might say, I always thought the mountains were closer to the actual city of Denver. Is that something that a lot of people say all the time, thinking Denver is just right there in the mountains? Whatever. I'm just starting a conversation, or maybe there's a restaurant that's close to a certain city. Maybe if somebody is in Miami, I'm in South Florida, so they might say, I don't drink coffee, but let's say they you can start a conversation around this. Might say, hey, I'm thinking of going to Miami. If you were to pick what's the best spot to get some Cuban coffee, where would be the best place you'd recommend? Somebody in Miami, since it's such a big thing culturally, people are, of course, are going to have opinions about that.
Yeah.
But it starts a conversation, or maybe there's something on, not like the university they went to, but if they post a content recently, ask a question about that piece of content, or maybe they have a background photo, say something about the background photo. It's just simple ways that you can engage with content or start the conversation with that new person that you're connected to. So that's one strategy. As far as getting the appointment, what I typically do, and I'm going to tell you straight up my playbook. So when I share content, I go back to just like what you said. I send a connection request to those individuals. The content that I share, and I'm bringing you right into the showing you how the sausage is made. When somebody connects with me, usually, or when I send a connection request, usually, a connection request based on people who engage on one of my content pieces that I have on LinkedIn. Those content pieces are speaking to problems that my ideal customers face, or my listeners to my podcast face. So then, therefore, when they engage and I go back and I say something to the nature, I'm going to pick on somebody in the audience here. Let's say Adrian. So I might say, Adrian, thanks so much for engaging on my post about cold outreach or about LinkedIn secrets that nobody's using. Permission to connect here on LinkedIn. Usually what they'll do when I ask the question in my connection request, they're going to say permission granted. And then that's where I kick off the conversation. I was like, hey, I appreciate that. I'm always looking for more content ideas to share. Is there anything, or I might talk about that particular post. Like, out of curiosity, what intrigued you about that post? Was there any principles in that post that you liked, or something about that? I say, yeah, I like this component, or whatnot. And I said, what's the biggest challenge you're facing when it comes to LinkedIn right now? Well, one of the big pieces I'm facing is blah, 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 blah. Then I might give them answers, because I have podcast content, again, because it's my niche. I give them some content, or give them an episode or a blog that we have. And then I ask, if you're open to it, would love to jump on a 5 to 7 minute call and I can explain more. Usually they're going to say, all right, well, there's the source. I have a problem and he can help me out with it. Now, that call that I'm doing with that person, it's not a bait and switch. It's not a trick. I'm literally going on that call and
Absolutely.
I'm giving them answers. But what typically happens, because I do that, they ask about my services and about our company and so forth. And that leads to opportunities. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But again, if I'm able to help my community and do a quick phone call with them, I have a set up on my calendar, like say Friday afternoons, I have these 15-minute blocks that I can, send people a calendar link and they can pick a time.
Awesome.
But it allows for me to be able to focus and give them some opportunities, and also get me start conversation with people from that I'm engaging with on the platform.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And this is exactly what what I do. I network with my peers. So my peers are SDRs, are full cycle salespeople, AEs, whatever you want to call people who sell. And what I do, I get on like networking calls because I really want to get their insights into what's working, what's not, especially if we have the same ICP. And a lot of the times, what would happen is that, oh yeah, sure, but what exactly are you selling? And they would get interested, and many of the times they would just start the free trial. Sure, many of them would not buy, but still, I had the entire teams come in because I talked to one of their SDRs and they just told them, okay, can you check out this tool? And eventually the sales manager would reach out to me and say, yeah, we want to try out your tool. I know it's a long-term game, but it's definitely worth the shot, and you are definitely not being like the rest of people who are just like spamming and pitch slapping in your inboxes. But I know we mentioned when we talked those like underrated strategies, and
Yeah,
you mentioned the triggers, and we talk a lot about messaging, but I think the real underutilized strategies are notifications, celebrations, job changes, etc. So
yeah.
what do you teach in your courses?
So here's this again. Go back to what we are talking about. There are people behind all of those. LinkedIn, even if you have the free version, it's going to give you notifications every day. People who have job changes, people who have birthdays, and so forth. With the premium LinkedIn, you're allowed to you get the celebration section underneath your network. So if you go to network, click on network right now. There's two little people, and then
Yeah.
you see network. Below that, you'll see people who
Yes.
will maybe connection requests that you have, and then underneath that it says celebrations and has birthday, anniversaries, and new jobs or whatnot.
Yes.
That is absolutely gold. Now the problem that I find that most people do is that they send out the canned one. LinkedIn, and just understand how LinkedIn works. I just it's just basic science, basics logics here. LinkedIn makes their money from people who are from advertisers. That's probably where they get most of their bucks. Most of you're not using a
Yeah.
premium version, but they're getting money from advertisers. Advertise is one platform where people are active. So LinkedIn is going to give you capabilities so that you can be more active on that platform, so that it can present you to advertisers, and advertisers can then make money, from you, and LinkedIn. Everybody leaves happily. But here's the component though. So LinkedIn give you the default messages. Worst case scenario, if you just push it and say, "Hey, it's Jermaine's birthday. Happy birthday, Jermaine."
Yeah.
They're starting. That's at least something someone can do. I recommend not to do that. What I do recommend is I'll tell you a story, and then I'll come back and break down the strategy for you. So I saw an individual on LinkedIn, a guy that we've been working with, and you mentioned this as well, that it's a long-term strategy, right? When it comes to, reaching out to people on LinkedIn. So, or using LinkedIn as a networking platform to generate opportunities. But what I did with this gentleman, we connected. He was listening to our podcast, and we started conversations and so forth on the platform. And then I saw that he had a birthday, and he posted that he was in Florida on this birthday. What I then did, instead of being like everyone and putting in the automated, like on his post, like happy birthday, I liked it. But then I took it to the inbox, since I was already connected with him, and I sent him a video. And the video was just very simple. It says, "Hey, I saw you're in Florida, blah blah blah. Hope you're having a great day. Enjoy it." And whatever, I think he was like 35, turning 35, he said, or something like that, 36. So I said something about that. But I did a video on the LinkedIn app, and sent that video. Dude sent back a message like, "Donald, I took this video and I shared it with my wife. And it was just so personal, and I appreciate that. Thank you." And then I still tell him, I just genuinely wanted to wish you a happy birthday, and to express that. And then he was like, "It was felt, appreciate it." Now, what happened? Did I get business from that? I did, absolutely. How? Because I sent him an email a little bit later, not that same day or the same week. It was a few weeks later. I had one of our new cohorts, and I was like, you know what, let me hit him up now. So I sent him an email. That email was responded to. He brought in his sales director. His sales director and I did a consulting project where I consulted their organization. Then after that, he put some of his sales teams in one of our sales cohort programs, and that was awesome as well. But again, this all it came from me connecting with my network and using that. I don't necessarily pitch a whole lot on LinkedIn, but now because I have the connections on LinkedIn, when I do send those emails, I'm able to use the subject line to the conversation that I had on LinkedIn, and that usually caused my emails to get open. That usually leads to appointments as well. So the strategy there with the birthday is be different, be unique, but be genuine. You don't need to write a dissertation, or you don't need to, be a opera singer. I use the voice app sometimes, and I might joke with somebody, and I did this for one of our friends, with somebody I know the other day. Saw LinkedIn, told me they had a birthday, so I sent them a voice message like, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear person's name, happy birthday to you, hope you have a happy birthday, I just wanted to really celebrate with you, blah, blah, blah. But that's a simple thing, and they send a message back, and it's connecting my network. Same idea when it comes towards, so that's a birthday component. You can use video, text, or you can use like the audio component on LinkedIn. But that's one way it's totally underutilized. And since most people on LinkedIn don't get an opportunity to get those, when you do send that, it stands out, and it's not just like that canned thing. And you're not using this. And please, I want to make sure you can understand this. I did a post on this yesterday. I'm not telling you to do this as a bait and switch. I'm telling you to do this from a genuine connection, genuine from being genuine with somebody. But once you do that genuine connection with someone, once you do this in a genuine way, usually what happens, it starts conversation. This is how it works in conversations. The connections, genuine connections lead to genuine conversations. Those genuine conversations usually leads to to appointments, and those opportunities 9 times out of 10 lead to those appointments 9 times out of 10 lead to opportunities where it might say, yeah, I'm interested in your service, I'm interested in your software, and then from that it usually leads to business. But if you're looking to jump on LinkedIn and you're just trying to send a message, and you're on this webinar today just so you can figure out how to use birthdays to just go in and get a deal closed, it's not going to work, and you probably should leave. But if you're looking to be able to truly genuinely connect with people, magic starts to happen. Because here's what happens too with the platform. You may say it's a long-term game, but it's momentum. It's kind of like a farmer. If a farmer doesn't plant a seed today and then all of a sudden goes out tomorrow and says, where's my crop? You plant it, but then you have this compound that starts to happen, because now I can get 3 to 5 appointments from LinkedIn. And that's what we teach in our courses. 3 to 5 appointments per week from LinkedIn. And that's not doing my cold call and anything else, just me on LinkedIn, because I've done and I'm doing this, I'm planting on a day-to-day basis over and over, so I can go and reap every single week, if that makes sense. And that's how you start with it. So that's the first one on the birthday. I'll give you some other ideas on the others as well.
I just wanted to say, like, I don't really feel natural, for example, with the video component of LinkedIn, but I do with voice notes. So in the past, I've gotten so many appointments with voice notes, and it wasn't just me pitching; it was tying back to an event, usually a post or something, like saying, "Hey, oh, I saw your comment, really made me laugh," or whatever, just complimenting people. But still, it was a long-term game, and I was planting at least 10 of those seeds per day. And then what happened is the compound effect. Those people started recognizing me, they engaged with my content, and eventually they would ask me, okay, so what does your service do, and what do you do? Or either we would jump on a networking call, and well, everything basically that you just explained. But I somehow feel that people are still not comfortable. And when I say voice notes, people are still shocked, and they're like, yeah, what's that? And do I have to use my phone? I actually, 90% of the time, I use LinkedIn on my phone. I do not connect on my Mac. So yeah, if you want to reach out to me, you can definitely do that by voice notes. And I cannot count how many times people actually went through my spotlight feature that I know you also mentioned, and they saw that I'm also a part-time sommelier. So wine is one of my biggest passions, and like anyone who would reach out, send a message, what's your favorite wine, or like what was the last visit to a wine country, I would always reply back. So yeah, so Spotlight is another thing that's underutilized.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's such a simple thing. I want to give a strategy specifically for on a birthday one now. Not birthday, around the promotion or new job. I'll give you stories because everything I tell you is stuff that I've tried and stuff that I use. So it's not giving you just fluff or ideas or a blog that I read. So this gentleman, he had a job promotion on LinkedIn, and everybody, again, in order to be successful, do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. Let me say that for the people in the back. In order to be successful, do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. So he has a post, and you've seen those posts before, blah, 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 starting a new job as VP of sales. So I'm always out looking for those celebrations, because that VPs of sales, that's my jam right there. I connect with VPs of sales left and right because those are the people that buy from me. Yeah. So then therefore saw that he had a new position and he was celebrating this. So everybody was like, guess what everyone said on the post? Congrats, 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 congrats. So again, I was like, how can I stand out different? So I sent a message, I commented on, first off, I did a different icon. So, different reaction. You could do a thumbs up or the insights or the heart or clap. So I naturally said, everybody's doing the blue thumbs up. So let me do something a little bit different. So it's like the clap or the insights or a celebration, or did another thing just so my icon, my reaction can stand out a little different. People like to go back and look at this scene, who engaged on them. And when they see a different one, they go look and see it that. But again, now I just have just got imprinted on that person. On the post, I actually did a comment, and I did a thoughtful comment, something around his job, like, oh my goodness, this looks so amazing. Congratulations. This is, I can't remember, well deserving. Clearly you're going to do an amazing job at this role. Blah, 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 as opposed to congrats. So I had a meaty little paragraph, 3 sentences that looks way different than everybody else's. Congrats, 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 congrats. So that was the first step there. Did a different emoji engagement. 2, I did a thoughtful comment. And then this is where the money came in. 3rd, I sent him a personal LinkedIn message. I like video and audio again. So I said something to the nature of, my goodness, congrats again on a new role. I'm sure you're going to do absolutely amazing, well deserving of this. Out of curiosity, what is your first line of business? What's your first order of business? What's your first project? What's your first major task? So if somebody's going in a new role and they're excited about that, of course they're going to tell you. I tell you, about 80% of the time when I say that, people tell me exactly, or 80, 90%, they tell me exactly what they're going to focus on. So let's hear me out here. Hear me out. So if a VP of sale that I like to do business with, and those are most of my contacts, DVPs, directors, sales leaders, sales professionals, do you think that I can help them with most of their problems or things that they're working on? Absolutely. So then now he just told me, my goal is to expand my team. I want to grow my team. I want to, have a global impact, or we're taking a company global, and some of these other things, and everything that he was saying, I'm like, check, check, check. These are things that I could help him with. So then naturally it led to the point where I was like, this is absolutely, amazing. Give him some advice. If you want me to, he said he's looking for a job. I was like, can I go ahead and tag one of my can I go ahead and tag one of my and for me, I have a community, so I was giving him value. So I did something to the nature of saying, do you have a job post? I can go ahead and share it with my community, see if any salespeople can benefit from that. Of course, he was excited, right? Because this was like, oh yeah, it's hard to find salespeople, especially everybody knows that these days. So then I gave him that bone, give him some help, and I was like, also, I have an idea that I would love to share with you. Would you be open to that? And naturally, of course, he said yes. And then I was able to then get an appointment with him. What did I do? How did I get that appointment? Did it happen overnight? No. I've been depositing in that bank account for years. I mean, probably about a year and a half, because that's how long we were connected. Shared content, engaged with his content, saw that I saw he had an opportunity. So I shot my shot at that point, right? I saw that trigger. So I was like, let's do this. I'm going to shoot my shot. So I went ahead and shoot my shot, and turns out that he was interested. This led to 2 opportunities I created for our business. The point is, use their job promotions as a strategy to start conversations. The conversations, find out what are they focusing on. And if you can help them do that, even if it's not with your product, maybe it's somebody else's product that can best help that person. Maybe he said, you know what, I'm looking to get a new CRM. bro, I know a great CRM that you should check out. I have friends over at at XYZ companies. Let me go ahead and connect you with them. He probably would be excited because I solved the problem for him. Then I could probably go in and share a thought. May I ask you a question? And that's the next component. I could talk about that later. But the point is those celebrations, those two things, job promotions and new jobs, I'd probably put in the same category, and birthdays. People don't utilize those, but those are amazing conversation starters because it's celebration for those individuals, something that means something to them. Their birthdays are big deals. Their new jobs are big deals. Again, don't do it as an opportunity just to be able to go and click and and switch and trick them into a conversation. Be genuine, but because you're genuine, it's going to lead to the opportunities where you can ask that question, which naturally leads to where you can help them solve it with your solution or with somebody else's solution. Thoughts,
Yeah.
feelings, questions on that?
Yeah, exactly. That was my next one. I really wanted to make this
Yeah.
a bit more engaging with our audience. So we have about 10 to 15 more minutes. So if anyone in the audience wants to ask a question, now it's a great time. I do have another question for you. We mentioned that this is a long-term game. It involves many steps in the outreach. Many reminders probably because you forget about those people. So my natural question is, since this is very manual, have you ever thought about getting a tool? Do you actually use a tool, or like you're setting yourselves reminders in your Google Calendar? So how do you handle that?
Yeah, and that's one of the challenges that LinkedIn has. And I'm just being straight. This is not an advertisement for LeadDelta, but guys, that's why I like the tool, because it allows for me to basically make my LinkedIn a mini CRM at that point, right? So I can then be able to get more, keep track of those conversations. My conversation in the LinkedIn app itself right now is like crazy. But when I use a tool like what you guys have, it allows for me to be able to filter those conversations, have them in the right thing. I can put little reminders and almost like, again, like if it's in the CRM, and do follow-ups and have little messages and whatnot. So that's
Yeah.
one piece that I would recommend. The other component is just like, you just try to remember. If you're gonna do it, just try to remember based on what LinkedIn gives you that day. Like, here are the people with the birthdays this week or whatnot. And you try to do it based on that. But life gets busy and we have stuff that we are doing, and we have other things, and we forget and we miss those. But that's how I do it, taking advantage of tools like what you guys have.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah,
Just
before I joined LeadDelta, it was super busy for me on LinkedIn, and I had no idea what was going on. So yeah, working for a company that has this kind of tool, it's really, really, really helpful. We have a question from someone who likes who prefers to say anonymous, which is fair enough. Say you're an agency. How would you pitch using connections, warm contacts versus cold contacts?
warm contacts versus cold contacts.
Yes.
My trick, my not trick, but my strategy here is permission to ask a question. So
Okay.
this is what I do on a day-to-day basis. So go back and again, we got to understand, if this is how the strategy, you're doing a lot of connection requests on a day, not a lot. You're doing like 5 to 10 of them on a day-to-day basis, right? Now, what starts to happen is people start to see your content, start to engage on your content. What I do, I'll go and look at my LinkedIn connections, and I'll filter based on sales leaders. And this is where LeadDelta comes in. And I can look and see sales leaders, VPs of sales, sales directors, and the folks that I know I've been connected with for a while. And I ask, send out me 10 of those personal connect messages at that point. If you're an agency, maybe you're reaching out to marketing directors or founders, and said you've been connected with them for like a month or so, or at least a month, or people you've been connected with for a while. Now the fruit is ripe. You can go and ask a question. And what I do, I say, hey, permission to ask a question. Or I might say something like, James, permission to ask a question. And then James is going to say, of course he's going to say, yeah, sure, Donald, what's up? And then that's the only time I pitch on a platform. And then I would pitch. So I only pitch to people that I know, those warm connections, and I would pitch to them at that point. And I give them a straight up value. Like, say, I noticed that you guys are growing. I saw your teams. You're hiring a lot more BDRs. LinkedIn shows you the jobs, right? They're hiring a lot more BDRs. out of curiosity, have you ever partnered with an outside organization to get them ramped up to speed? And you might, that question is going to get replied to. Donald, we've never done that. We've all done it internally, but I'm not opposed to it. What are your thoughts? Well, if you're open to a call, I can set up, show you what I'm thinking about and how we help other companies. We supplement what they're doing internally. All right, cool. Let's do it. But now that person took that call from me because they knew me or because it was warm. Therefore, you want to keep sharing content once a week. People engage on on the platform, and then if you do that on a regular basis, reach out to 5 people a day or whatnot, permission to ask a question, you'll be amazed how many appointments you can get. And that's one of the easiest ways to get appointment is actually from your warm connections. But you can't go back, again, your connections become warm when you engage. You can't just send a bunch of connection requests and then all of a sudden I'm going to go back in and ask all these people to meet with me, or permission to ask a question. At that point, you got to make sure that you're at least nurturing, you're farming, you're pruning, you're engaging with folks. And that's why I say connect, share, engage. You do those 3 strategies regularly on the platform.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
Yeah.
That asks, which new MarTech or sales tools are you excited about besides LeadDelta, of course?
Apollo.io.
Oh yeah, that's the hot news right now. Yes.
Apollo. I've been addicted to Apollo for about the past year. Had a guy on my show, maybe a year and a half now. He told me about it in a pandemic, and I was like, "What?" And I checked it out, and I was like, "This is all right." And then as I got deeper, I'm like, "This is really dope." And I love, 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 love Apollo. I don't get any benefit from me telling you all that, but the thing that I do, and this is another thing that most people don't utilize. So if you're a sales rep, ask your marketing team if you can become an admin or some kind of admin on the page of the company. And if you go to your company page right now, you're going to see your company has followers, or you can communicate with marketing, have them help you. So I did a little campaign on my personal, on our, since I'm the owner of the company. So what I did, I set up people started following my company, and I saw that most of those people were following our company, the sales evangelists. And we don't have a whole bunch on that, but we just started really focusing on the content for sales evangelists. So on our company page, but we started to see people that were finding the content there weren't connected to me. So I send them a personalized connection request, and I will say something like, hey, Amber, I saw that you're following our company. I figured I would go ahead and reciprocate permission to connect with you here on LinkedIn. And they're going to say, of course, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So then they connect with me. And then I put them on I click because Apollo links to my LinkedIn. So then I put them in a Apollo sequence that ties to my LinkedIn. So it's LinkedIn followers, but like say something like, hey, first name, I saw that you're, thanks for connecting back with me on LinkedIn or whatever. Saw that you're also following our company page out of curiosity, blah, blah, blah. Ask them a question that triggers a conversation. Now they're communicating with me in that email because they saw that I communicated with them from my LinkedIn connection request. So it's automated emails now becomes a little bit more personal because the sense of we already doing a natural conversation on LinkedIn. And then that usually that's led to appointments time and time again that gets people. But as an individual user for your company, you're not going to be able to get that. So I would tell marketing if they can send you report every week and say who are the new followers for the company page, because you're creating content for that, then you send a personal connection with them, and then you can add them to your sequences or whatnot. And the other thing that I like to do is also use Navigator. Using Sales Navigator, I'm able to build out my list and then put that list. And what I like to do with Navigator, I look for people who have posted on the platform, on the spotlight features, posted on a platform recently, and then new to their job. You can't get that full detail
changes, yeah.
Yeah. So then once I get a list of those people and those are prospects, then I go ahead and put that into Apollo, and then I can enrich that data from Apollo, and that leads to opportunities.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, the session about the sales now, I think we can do a whole another session
Oh
on
my
that
goodness.
because
Yeah.
there's so much
Let
to
me know
do
when
on
you guys
that.
are ready.
Yeah. We have another question from Jacob. If you're reaching out to your ICP on LinkedIn that you've been connected with for months and posting weekly, what response rate should you expect? And if your rate is low, what should you consider changing? Good question.
So the first component with that is great question. The first side to that is question is what response rate should you expect? If you're posting content regularly, you're connecting with people and engaging with them. I see for myself at least a 50% response rate, because now they're not seeing you as a stranger anymore. You're responding. They're communicating with you. Now, the factor that I find is that sometimes, answering the second question, sometimes the people that we are connecting with may not necessarily be active on LinkedIn a lot. And you'll see this often. This is why I use Navigator, and I can see if somebody posted content, if my ICP have posted content on the platform in recently, or if they have a job change. So because of that, it increases the odds of that person responding to messages. Because I know some people that just check LinkedIn like once a month. So yeah, they are my ICP and I connected with them. But if they're not active on a platform, they're not truly a full ready ICP. I want people who are engaging on the platform. So then that I go a little bit more niche with it. So the first component, are you trying to sell to people that are not even there? And if they are there, the second component I would say to go back and look at is, are those people actually, are you engaging with those people naturally? Are you commenting on their stuff? Are you sharing? Are you when they do post, are you engaging really, or just saying, hey, great stuff, or a thumbs up? Give a thoughtful comment. Even if they posted their company blog and took a link, go read that quickly, or put on, if you're an Apple phone, go put on the accessibility feature and do something else and have the blog play, Apple read it for you, or the computer. And then now you can listen for a couple points, take those points, and then go back into the conversation. I did this to a gentleman yesterday. Nobody posted. A lot of people liked all of the posts, but no one commented. So I stood out. So I did a different emoji than the like. I did the insights, the light bulb, and then I did a comment around the post that he just did, that he shared like a few days ago. And I told him, it's something I didn't know about before, and I was curious, I'm grateful for this, and I'm going to share this with other people. So now he probably feels good that he got a notification, but I'm engaging with him. So that's the concept there. And everything I'm telling you here, you can spend 30 minutes a day, do this, and you can be done and go off and do other stuff. But the strategy of connecting with people, sharing a post, engaging on posts, and looking at the birthdays or the work anniversary, setting a personal thing around that, you can applying 30 minutes a day for this, and you'll be light years ahead. I try to spend about 2 hours a day on LinkedIn, because it's that important to my business. So I might do an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, if there are no more questions, we can slowly close this off. This was super helpful, and I think I can ask you other 100 questions regarding the outreach on LinkedIn. But what I would like to add is that we shared a lot of insights here, a lot of strategies. What I wouldn't do is focus on 10 things at a time, but I think it's important to focus 1 or 2, see if there are any results, and then pivot. Because I feel that people usually do like 10, 15 things, and they're like, I'm not seeing results. Yeah, because you're not doing any of those in the right way, and you're not testing it.
Yes. Try one at a time. Just try that strategy. Maybe it's just like you're doing the birthdays and then the work anniversaries. Try that for a month and see. Yeah. But I promise you're going to get appointments from it. It's a gold mine. LinkedIn is a literal gold mine. And if you're curious about that more, you can connect with me. Send me a message. Definitely. We have a LinkedIn prospecting course that teaches people how to do this on a day-to-day basis.
Definitely. Awesome. Oh, all right. Well, thank you for this. This was super insightful. We'll definitely stay in touch. Yeah, do you want to say the closing words as well?
Yeah, the best thing to do, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. Same thing. The best time to be able to reap all the rewards from LinkedIn probably would have been 10, 20 years ago. Second best time is right now. So what I need you all to do is, if you're not connected with me already, go send a connection request. I promise I won't try to hustle you, but I want you to connect, and we can start genuine conversation. But then do the strategy. Go look at the birthdays, look at who had birthday today, and send a personal message. And if you don't get a genuine response back from that person, then I don't know, a person doesn't have a heartbeat. But if you do that, I promise to start a conversation. Some of you are going to see some appointments from that. So awesome. Let's start.
Thank you, Donald. Thank you very much.
Anytime. Appreciate you.
Bye-bye.